what's up? This is Harry Wagner from Harry's Situations, and today we're here with Dmitriy Dolotov from Stellarbuilt and his awesome 4Runner on 42-inch Nitto Trail Grapplers. This video is actually brought to you by Nitto. Even if you're not running 42s, they make a trail grappler in a 33, 35, 37, 38, 40. They definitely have a size that fits whatever vehicle you're taking out on the trail. So, Dmitry, tell me, how did you get into four-wheeling initially?
Well, my first experience with 4x4 was in a two-wheeler drive lot that my dad owned, and this was back in the 80s, so I think I want to say it was like 1989. We would do a lot of outdoor kind of exploration, mushroom picking, berry picking, fishing, and it was a two-wheeler drive, a lot of back in Russia, you know, as basic as it gets, manual transmission, no power, anything. So that was my kind of first experience as a child going outdoors and kind of wheeling. So now fast forward, I guess 15, 20 years after that, my first 4x4 was a Mitsubishi Montero. So great starter truck, easy to get, easy to kind of go out and start wheeling and start, you know, tinkering with and, you know, get out and about.
Lotus don't have the best reputation for reliability, so I can see why you're driving Toyotas these days.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I'm definitely a Toyota guy. We got a Land Cruiser, a couple generations of Land Cruisers. I got a Tacoma, we have a GX. Let's see, what else do we have? Kind of everything in between. I mean, there's a few Tacoma pickups, few like Lexuses, so, and I've owned a ton of Toyotas over time. So, but currently, this is kind of one of my aces, is the 4Runner that we have here.
Yeah, and you built this at your shop, Stellarbuilt. Tell us how that got started.
Yeah, so we own a shop in Sacramento, California, and we specialize in pretty much anything 4x4. More oriented in Toyota world, but we do plenty of Jeep work and domestic, you know, full size and all that. So as far as starting the shop, you know, it's a classic, you know, kind of grassroots story. You know, I have a shop behind my house. Going back to the Mitsubishi days, you know, I had to get creative with modifying it. There's not a lot of aftermarket support for that truck, so I had to just build stuff. I had to build bumpers. I have to adapt, you know, let ARB bumpers to Montero, and you know, the only way to do that is cutting stuff up, welding together, and kind of you know, getting really creative with what works. So started the shop in my house, and you know, started working on friends' trucks, friends of friends, and realized that, you know what, this is like taking a lot of my time, and I kind of have to make a decision if this is what I want to do, and which I did. I love, you know, every moment of it. So kind of that escalated to, you know, renting some space, then, you know, more space, and then more equipment and more this and that. So now we're at a 18,000 square foot facility in Sacramento, and so all we do is just build trucks.
So let's talk about this 4Runner, the Moscow Mule.
Moscow Mule.
What did you know what your vision was when you bought this truck, or did you already have it and it kind of got built up over time?
Well, I mean, it really started with me being a Land Cruiser guy. Like, I love 80 series. I've owned a bunch of them, still own a bunch of them, and love the fact that it has a solid axle. Now, being an 80, it's a little dated, particularly when it comes to its power, you know, some of the ergonomics, and I really wanted to build something that's a little bit more modern, something with a hefty amount of power. So that's where this came in. 4Runners in this generation, which is the only generation that came with factory V8, which is a great motor. It's a 2UZ V8. Came in Tundras, Lexuses, Land Cruisers. I mean, this thing's got plenty of power. So it was a great platform as a build for a solid axle conversion. So, you know, the size, the power, you know, just being a robust platform was, you know, kind of put everything together. We decided to cut it up and, you know, put a big fat, you know, axle underneath. So, yeah.
What are the axles that you're running in this?
So this is I guess you can consider a junkyard setup, meaning this is removed from a 2005 and up Ford Super Duty. So we got a Dana 60 in the front and a matching set of a Sterling 10.5 in the rear.
And I saw the Sterling is shaved in the back for more ground clearance?
Yeah, so we removed about 1.5 inches, and that's a shaved kit from Ballistic Fab. So what it does is just, you know, you shave the housing. There's a new diff cover that goes on, along with shaving the ring gear to get that extra clearance.
And it looks like you're running RCVs in front. What are you running for lockers and gears in the axles?
So it's got RCVs in the front, factory shafts in the rear. We got 538 Yukon gears all around, along with ARBs front and back.
And I see you've done a lot of work to keep it low, even with 42s, like you had to notch the frame in the front for up travel?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the thing with the rock crawlers. It's very easy to build them when they're super tall. You know, it's easy to build them tall because you know you have all this room to move put all these brackets. So my goal with this truck was to keep it super low, and just like so it handles really well on the highway. So there is some we had to get really creative with the packaging. So definitely notching the frame to make sure you know our upper articulation, everything clears and nothing hits.
And you're running a 3-link with coilovers and bumps in the front?
Yeah, so this is your traditional 3-link suspension. We got high steer in the front, 14-inch king coilovers all around with just 2-inch air bumps all 4 corners.
And what about the steering? I mean, this came with a steering rack from the factory, and obviously that had to go away when you added the solid axle. So what did you do to steer those big tires?
Yeah, for sure. So we ended up converting this thing to a steering box from a Land Cruiser 80 series, and it's a super robust box. A lot of guys like to use the IFS box. I personally think this is one of the better options because it already comes bigger and stronger from the factory. So we built it up even more with some of the with using a 105 series sector shaft, which is just a big huge sector shaft that doesn't snap over time. It's rebuilt from Redhead, and as far as everything else, I mean, we got PSC Hydro Assist and you know, just everything big and bulky. You know, we got dual shear in all of our connections, so there's no chance of really breaking anything.
You mentioned packaging, and now, you know, obviously the whole front axle and the front suspensions changed, but the rear axle changed as well. I know on these, one of the dilemmas is the gas tank sits off to the side, so it can be hard to package the rear suspension too. What did you do to overcome that?
So one thing I wanted to do is I wanted to have a triangulated setup, and like you said, the gas tank is in the way. So you know, so one way you can do it is you can just take that gas tank, put it in the back, relocate it in the rear, or just basically do all this extra work to add that bracket. So what we ended up doing was got a little creative. We have what's called a reverse triangulated 4-link setup. So we have 2 links, lower links that are facing forward, and the upper links are triangulated facing back of the truck. So something different. There's something you definitely don't see a lot, but it actually works really well. And pinion angles, everything is kind of works in your favor. So you know, there's no issues. And being a rock crawler, you know, I'm not really necessarily concerned with jumping this thing up and down. So as it moves side to side, like there's almost no difference in pinion angle at all. So,
wow.
So no problems there.
And are you running any sway bars on it?
So we are running a anti-rock sway bar in the rear. I don't feel I need a sway bar in the front, but we may add something in the future just to kind of see how it does. But you know, sway bar is really good in this truck, really, if it's if more for like highway use, and yeah, on the highway this thing drives great.
Yeah, I mean, wide, low, like you said, plenty of power. So you drove it up here today, right?
Yeah, I drove it from Sacramento all the way to Fordyce, yeah.
And what transfer case do you have in this? Because these came with a full-time transfer case, right?
Yeah, so being a V8, these came with, they came factory all-wheel drive. So your only option you have in your, as far as gear selection would be to go from high to low. That's it. There is no option to go in 2-wheel drive. So we converted this thing to a dual case setup. So we have a Tacobox from Marlin with 4/7 gears in that. And behind that, we have a transfer case out of a 2019 Toyota 4Runner manual shift case, which is very similar to like a MJ Cruiser case. So, and that's behind that. So the ratios, we got 4/7 in the front, and it's a 2.6 factory 2.6 in the rear.
Nice. I find when you have something that's full-bodied, having the gearing really helps because you can kind of crawl and sneak through stuff. You don't have to like use wheel spin necessarily, or concerned about sliding and stuff like that when you're in technical rock.
Yeah, absolutely. So having 2 different options for your low range. I mean, I found that 4/7 is a good all-around gear just to kind of do this kind of stuff on the rocks. And I personally like using the 2.6 when it comes to snow wheeling. So it's just a good balance between the two, and it works really well.
Tell us a little bit about the armor you have on this truck to keep it pretty.
So as far as armor, it's pretty straightforward. We do a lot of, there's a lot of tube work all around. So tube bumper with the box center, and it's welded to the truck. So I know, being a rock crawler, I'm not gonna be like moving this thing on and off. It's welded, it's set in. If I ever need to service anything, the cover for the winch is removable, and you know, if I need to get stuff in the back, radiators and fans, there's plenty of access. So we welded the front bumper, welded the rear bumper as well, which is the rear bumper is pretty cool because it's we ended up removing the factory cross member, welding a cross member to make it a little bit stronger, and kind of building a tube bumper around that, while incorporating some of the factory plastics and ergonomics of this truck. So going on to the sliders, set of 120 wall DOM sliders all around, again welded, gusseted to the frame.
So where have you wheeled this rig at?
So being in Northern California, kind of my home trail, it would be the Rubicon. You know, this thing did 5 trips back to back every weekend for the past few weekends. So
wow,
that's kind of where I like to go most. But you know, we pretty much wheel this thing all around here. You know, I've taken this thing to Slick Rock, all the trails down south. You know, hoping to take it to Hammers this year. But otherwise, you know, it kind of stays here. Just because, you know, we got plenty of pretty epic terrain right in our backyard.
And you mentioned the gearing for snow wheeling. I bet this thing is awesome in the snow.
Yeah, it does pretty well. I mean, it's a heavy truck having all those axles, so you know, but you know, it gets down. You know, it sucks when you're stuck, but
sure.
Yeah, but it does pretty good. You know, it's I don't snow wheel too much in this truck. I have another truck that's kind of more suited for that, but it definitely puts in work.
So running the 42-inch Trail Grapplers requires a 20-inch wheel. What wheels did you go with on this?
So these are KMC 20 by 10 grenades. So it's a true beadlock. And before I had 17s on a 40-inch, and I figured I noticed a lot of people running 20-inch, and I just kind of wanted to see what it's like. And you know, I think it fits the 42-inch size really well. The proportions are right, and you know, I've never had really any issues. We added a set of monster valves from Power Tank just to you know, deflate these guys on the go. And otherwise, I mean, they work really well.
So despite having an overhead cam V8 under the hood, there's actually a decent amount of space under here. I see you've reworked the inner fenders. Tell us what you got here for layout under the hood.
Yeah, absolutely. So we kind of have to get creative as far as some of the packaging. 14-inch coilovers, they require a lot of breathing room. So we have our mounts, we got the towers themselves. So we ran the resis up top, and I you know, honestly, I just love how it looks. They do stay relatively cool because being a sports model, it has a ram air kind of action going on here, so that's always kind of helps them keep things nice and cool. As far as the rest of the layout, we did move the battery, the original battery, in the back because we kind of raised the fenders, and we added a couple of more things. Moved the filter in the back because originally it sat here. Our PSC Hydro Assist tank is on the side. This is our winch controller. Moving on to this side, we got the Spritz Pro, so this is kind of what controls all of our electronics. And when it comes to electronics, we have all of our air lockers, we have a couple of light bars, and the air bead compressor, which we have in the back. So moving on to the front, we got a set of derail, we got a derail cooler with the fan, and that's for our transmission, and we have another fan from Mishimoto for our steering.
Wow. And then this after aluminum radiator as well?
Yeah, so we ended up scrapping the original radiator that came with the truck, and this is actually a Tundra radiator. The factory one sat up to here, and you know, after adding all this stuff, all these axles and gears and tires, and I did notice the temperature kind of begin to crawl up, so we ended up going with a Tundra radiator, which is just really, it's just bigger, so and that kind of helped down a lot.
So what do you got going on underneath the rear of here?
Yeah, so this is the reverse triangulated four-link that I mentioned earlier. You can see what kind of makes this thing unique is that the triangulation is happening towards the back. So we have our upper mount, which shoots to the back of the frame, and it just gets mounted to the cross member here. So shaved axle, we have a set of, we have an anti-rock sway bar that runs above the frame, out of the way, that connects over to the sides. We have aluminum links all around. This is from Hammer Down Enterprises, paired up with joints from Metal Cloak. Now, I like these joints. I just installed these recently, and what's nice about these is they ride really nice. This is the same joints that they use on all their lift kits, and they're just super comfortable. So now, another kind of cool thing about the rear suspension is that we have exhaust pretty much completely out of the way. So we have our pipes, they're kind of going through the cross member and through the bumper. So, you know, I don't have to worry about hitting it, you know, when I'm reversing or, you know, hitting on a rock or whatever.
So one issue with having an enclosed cab, like having an SUV versus a truck, is in a truck, a lot of times people will build a bed cage, or it's no big deal to sort of cut into the bed structure. But in an SUV, I know you have 2 daughters, you want to keep this thing sealed up and enclosed. You took your daughter on the Rubicon recently. You don't want the cab to be filled with dust or someone to get their hand into a coilover.
Absolutely. So that was a challenge. So being 14-inch coilovers, they need a lot of room. So, you know, we didn't want to mount them in the back, like they say Jeeps do, just mostly because of the packaging reasons. So we just mounted straight on top, and now all the up travel, all the mounting on the inside had to go inside the cab itself. Now I'll show you how we ended up sealing everything off.
Those shock towers turned out sweet, and you mentioned the battery relocation, and I thought your compressor was in the back here too.
Yeah, absolutely. So the whole goal for the back here is kind of keep it OEM plus, that's how I like to call it. So we ended up, once we got the coilovers in, we ended up kind of building these boxes with caps on top that still allow you to service them. And going into the compressor, I kind of ran out of room of mounting it under the engine bay, so we ended up stuffing it into the quarter panel behind this panel. That's where the factory jack and tools used to sit. So I'll show you that. And that's a full the dual ARB compressor with the mount that's kind of tucked in, mounted in the back, and you know, that's what operates all of our air and as well as our lockers.
So there's a lot more shifters than we see in a normal 4Runner. What's going on inside here?
Yes, so that's the question I get the most. So originally, this was the control for everything 4x4. You have 4 high, 4 low, and that's about it. This is where the original cup holders used to be. So now, since this truck has dual cases, we had to make room to put all those sticks. So it's dual cases, but there's 3 sticks, and I kind of give you a quick rundown. So we have our 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive. We have our high and low on our front case. That's the Tacoma case. So we have 4:7 and 1:1 ratio. And then we have our back connection here, back stick. This is going to be to the factory case, which is a 2.621. So as far as everything else, it's pretty simple. I just have a mount for the phone. I have a scan gauge, and I got a switch for it to control everything. That's about it.
From humble roots wheeling a Lada to building some of the coolest rock crawlers around, Dmitriy is an inspiration for all of us. Comment below and let me know what your dream build is, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching this Hairy Situations video on the Driving Line channel. Driving Line has all sorts of great content creators, and they're dropping new content almost daily. You're definitely going to want to subscribe so you don't miss any of it in the future. And we'll see you out on the trail.